Alrighty. Gonna get these yawns out now. Alright. Three. Are you all set?
No, this thing's bugging me. I need to get a better position. There we go.
Okay.
Alright.
Alright, we got 3, 2, 1. Thanks for joining us for The Drive Back, the movie podcast where we imitate our favorite thing to do after a movie, which of course is to talk about it on the ride home. I'm Garrett, and as always I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Adrian.
Hey, how's it going?
And today we have another show and tell. What are those, Adrian?
Show and tell are where I have seen a movie and Garrett has not, or Garrett has seen a movie and I have not, and we both show and tell each other about the movies that we have seen.
Absolutely, and today we have a little bit of a theme. We have two movies that were Oscar nominees in 2019. So all of this and more coming up on The Drive Back. Okay. The one thing that sucks about having a mustache is it gets wet.
Yeah, that's true.
It's out of nowhere. Alrighty. 3, 2, 1. Alright, back at it with two pretty heavy hitters in terms of, just the amount of good reviews that they have from other review outlets. And a movie that I'm surprised that I haven't seen until this point, and a movie that I'm surprised you haven't seen until this point. So we're just kind of getting two anticipated ones off the list. So, alrighty, let's go ahead and start up with my choice for Adrian to watch, which is The Lighthouse. Released in 2019, it was directed by Robert Eggers and stars Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe, and Valeria Karaman. Two lighthouse keepers try to maintain their sanity while living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s. It was nominated for 1 Oscar for Best Cinematography.
Interesting nomination. Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I expect, without spoiling my thoughts, it should have been nominated for more than just that, but that's just my opinion. But I'm interested to see what you thought. I think this is the one I'm really looking forward to see what you think.
Yeah, I had no clue what this was about besides that I assumed it was about a lighthouse, which I was right, which was nice. But I actually feel that this movie has a lot up for interpretation in what actually happens in the film. And I think it's done on purpose. Without getting too spoiler, there's a lot of flip-flopping of emotions in the movie that kind of keep you on your toes and kind of let you or me watching it decide my own storyline throughout the film. And while that is pretty masterful in that aspect, the movie itself didn't fall flat for me, but was not like a 10 out of 10 amazing film. I think that I liked The Witch better.
I actually disagree. I think The Lighthouse is better, personally. But
I think it's a little... I think maybe this is just a thing with me, but I think it's a little too on-the-nose art housey, which I've complained about in the past, and that's just a personal thing for me. Like, I think sometimes when movies dive too deep into that rabbit hole, it kind of irks me the wrong way. In this movie, again, it's not bad by any means. It's good. It's just, I feel like maybe all the reviews let me down a bit. Like, I just got too hyped up on it. But it was good.
Gotcha. Actually, what I figured actually you were going to say that. This is the first time my predictions come true.
Yeah, nice.
I thought you were going to think it was a little too artsy, which I definitely get. I think that this is a very artistic movie, but it was made with the intention of looking like it was filmed at the time or very close to it. And I really love the up-to-interpretation stuff. I think it's fantastic. You could read this a bunch of different ways, which we'll get into in a minute after we drop a spoiler warning. But just before that, I mean, this isn't a spoiler kind of statement. Robert Pattinson gives the best performance of his career, I think. And
yeah, there were some scenes in this film where it was really shocking and haunting, even just his acting. Like, just the performance itself was pretty amazing.
Yeah, and then Willem Dafoe. I mean, come on. Where was his Oscar nomination for this? That was pathetic.
Yeah.
Like,
both of them, obviously, they carried the movie. It's the two of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, both of them playing off of each other. It's good. There's no question about it. It's a good movie.
So let's go ahead and jump like a mermaid into some spoilers. I don't know. I felt like that was
Can mermaids jump?
I'm sure that out of the water, maybe. I don't know. It felt like a good transition in my head before I said it. But let's go ahead and drop spoiler warnings. You can, in fact, watch The Lighthouse on Prime Video if you are a Prime subscriber, or you can rent it pretty much anywhere else. Quick, I guess, biased potential warning. I do own this movie on Blu-ray, so I do enjoy it enough that it is in my collection. So there is that out of the way. For me, this movie, it's a very, as you said, it's a very deep movie for you to kind of think about what is happening yourself. You could read this as, everything is fine, and Willem Dafoe is driving Pattinson's craziness. Or you could read it as Pattinson actually is going crazy because of the guilt he's feeling over what happened in his past, and just, the alcohol and all that starting to, take a hold of them. There's a bunch of different ways you could read this movie. I think it's an absolutely apt description.
So which way did you... What did you think the plot of the film was?
I think, in my humble opinion, I think that it's a little bit of both. I think that Winslow, the Robert Pattinson character, is actually having those twinges of insanity. But... Or
like a personality, like he actually is a little off his rocker.
Yeah, a little bit like cabin fever, but also there are moments when, Willem Dafoe's character drives him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, you came at me and attacked me with the axe and destroyed the boat. No,
yeah,
you did that. So it's a little bit of both. I honestly don't know what it really is. I think it's just two people spiraling into insanity at the same time in different ways. Because we know that Tom is insane pretty much from the start. He's like, I know, I'm the one that goes to the lighthouse.
Yeah, just very picky about his role and the job and all that.
Yeah, and it's heavily inferred that he's doing some sort of sexual act up there. Like, with the light, which is a great location. Everyone can see you. Imagine your shadow being cast out into the midnight air. But I think it's both of them kind of... It's definitely both of them spiraling, but...
That's really... The reason I asked you about which one you thought is because I don't think it was either of those things.
Really?
I think that... So I just watched this yesterday, and I think that what happened is Ephraim, when he fell while painting, I believe, that he fell, and you can't survive a fall like that without being severely injured. So what I interpreted is that, right, because the next scene he shows up without any scratches. He's completely fine. They don't even mention it. So I think that Tom left him out there, and everything we see past that point is a fever dream in his dying state until we finally pan out and see that he's being picked apart by the seagulls because he can't move anymore, and he's just laying there rotting.
That is... I can actually see that. However, it doesn't look like he falls very far, though.
I felt like it fell... I mean, at least to me, when he fell, I was like, oh, that's going to be bad.
Huh. Because I read that as like... It almost... From the way it's shot, it almost looked to me like he only fell like 10 feet. And... Oh,
I felt like it was probably, like 2 or 3 stories. Like he was up on the...
I'll have to rewatch that moment then, because I could see it now because more stuff starts to go downhill from that point on.
That's like it up until then, it's like a disagreement almost between like millennials and baby boomers and how work life balance, like how that works.
Yeah,
like just a disagreement and like take pride in your work, and him being like, I just bounce around, like I don't really care. And then literally like from that moment, like I think literally the next scene, stuff starts to get super weird.
Yeah, there is one thing I want to point out, though. I don't know if you caught it on your first viewing, because this was my 3rd or 4th time seeing this movie. And when they first arrive on the island, and they go up to the bedroom, and Winslow is kind of digging through his mattress, and finds the mermaid statue tucked into his bed.
After he pulls out some of the wool or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. As soon as he pulls out the statue, the clock starts ticking in the background. It's the first time you hear anything except for the foghorn. And to me,
Interesting.
that states that he found this statue, and it was a matter of time until something started going
That
wrong.
definitely makes sense. And I don't. So I remember the ticking clock. Obviously, it's a pretty main point in the film, but I don't remember it starting right then. But to me, that would definitely be the point of it starting, like the moment that this happened. So maybe that is saying that that thing is cursed, right? That you put now that he's touched it, this is you're cursed or whatever. But I also really enjoyed the fact of like there might be that fantastical element that Tom really was the daughter or the son of Poseidon
Yeah,
and able to shapeshift and all these other things that they kind of allude to in the film. I loved all the Greek stuff. I thought it was super super fun.
yeah. If anything, I don't feel like this is a horror movie. It has twinges of it here and there, but I would
Yeah.
say it's more of a thriller.
It's more like I would actually say it's almost like more akin to Shutter Island
yeah,
than it is like more psychological where you're trying to pick apart
Suspense.
the true story. Yeah.
yeah. But also, I feel like this really it's an American, a distinctly American because it takes place during 1890s, northeastern United States. But it's an American folklore story. Almost like the way that The Witch is, because The Witch is almost like a folklore legend kind of thing, or based on it. And this kind of feels like a natural kind of next evolution of that, like in just a different location. Like
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Yeah, I know that I did look up a little bit, and I know that a story similar to this, not all the crazy stuff, but like the vanishing of lighthouse keepers is
Yeah.
a documented thing that like they just go away
Yeah.
and no one knows what happens.
There's one very famous story in particular that I know that of like the two lighthouse keepers that just left. Like, it was like they just left. Like all their stuff was like no, it wasn't like there was no shuffle, there was no like fighting.
Literally vanished. Yeah.
Yeah, people are like, oh, it's haunted. It's not. They probably just fucking died. I don't know.
They obviously just who knows.
Yeah, we'll never know. Like,
But I also thought it was cool that they brought in a lot of I don't know if this is even a term, but like sea folklore, like captains speak and stuff about the ocean that they always like those rumors that I'm sure lighthouse keepers have. Like I'm sure there's superstitions and all kinds of stuff in a profession like that, and I really felt like they communicated that really well. I think for me, looping back to why I didn't like this movie as much is I think it just
or as much as you thought it would.
Yeah, as much as I thought I would.
Yeah.
Is that I think it just kind of jumped around into scenes that I feel like were too on the nose to illustrate what's happening. Like I feel like some of the scenes that were definitely meant to show, like you're even talking about the ticking clock starting when he pulls the thing out. Like it just seems like everything was trying to just show like this is symbolism. Every single shot was like this is symbolically this happening, or this is symbolically this happening. And to me, I felt like I was very much able to tell. And I mean, us having watched movies for so long, I feel like I can usually tell those symbolism moments happening anyway. So I felt like I was being taught at the same time, which I think kind of was like, I get it. Like, okay, that's obviously this scene. Or like when he's being picked apart by the seagulls, it's like, okay, obviously Prometheus. Like very on the nose allusion to that. And I don't know. That just I think that was probably the thing that just kept rubbing me throughout the movie. I kept being like, I get it. This is this happening. This is him taking power over this. This is him saying this.
Yeah, but I mean, like most if not all of our storytelling comes from those Greek legends and those symbols. Like,
Sure.
That's so like maybe I mean, yeah, of course it's going to be referential to those, but I don't think
I think it can be referential without being like without saying it with force to you. Like I think there's ways to show that you're referencing Prometheus without literally showing that exact thing. Or there's like
I mean, I guess, maybe it just depends on your previous knowledge because I didn't get anything about Prometheus after. So
that was Prometheus' punishment for giving fire to man. He had crows eat his intestines out every day over and over again.
I'm familiar with the legend, but it just didn't like occur to me.
Maybe it's just more in my like frontal lobe Greek mythology. So maybe that's why it was felt too on the nose. But I liked them talking about it. I feel like Greek mythology has so much to give, and I loved it being viewed at from this new kind of perspective in a more gritty, realistic setting. And I do want to say one of the scenes I really, really liked is actually the final scene. Big spoiler, so turn it off now if you don't want the biggest spoiler of them all. Is when Ephraim finally gets to see what's in the light, and his face and the laugh from that. The whole movie, I felt like I was chill. And then during that scene, I was like, this is crazy. Like, that scene was so haunting. Yeah. That, like, 30-second stint of acting was incredible. Definitely probably the best moment in the whole film for me.
Speaking of stints of acting, we gotta talk about Willem Dafoe's sequence when Ephraim is drunk. And he's like, I can't stand your cooking. And then he just goes on this huge, like, sailor curse rant that is perfectly delivered.
Oh, yeah.
Like Willem Dafoe in this movie is the best I've ever seen him.
Yeah, I would say this is pretty much peak. And then I loved at the end of that when Ephraim goes like, okay, I like your cooking. I like your cooking. Yeah,
like misses the point completely.
He's like, take it easy, man. Like, what is going on here? Yeah, I think maybe I would just be cautious. To me, personally, my opinion of the hype around this movie, I think it's got a lot of really good things going for it. I think that, like, on Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's got like a 90. I think it's got like a similar score on Metacritic, like very well regarded. But I don't know what the Metacritic, but it is very art housey, and to me, when it gets too much like that, I tend to kind of get pushed the wrong way. But if you really enjoy movies like that, like if you really liked The Green Knight, and that was one of your favorite movies, this is probably going to line up very similarly with that feeling. Very kind of that same, like, storytelling style to me in this movie.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the art house stuff. So
yeah.
I
which is so funny how we talked about Wes Anderson, that like you steered away from it for so long, and now his pretentiousness.
I think it's art house to me though is different from like the Wes Anderson style of like artsiness.
Yeah, I guess.
Because there's leaving it to the imagination or leaving it up to interpretation kind of artsiness that I love. Whereas like there's like the stuff that seems pretentious or like quirky, like like when something's
like
too
quirky for no reason. Yeah.
Yeah, when it's quirky for the sake of being quirky.
Yeah.
Like, that rubs me the wrong way.
Sure.
Maybe it's the opposite for you, but I don't know.
No, I think it's the same. Again, I think I don't like when it becomes forced in my eyes. And I feel like this one definitely same, and that was my opinion on Green Knight. I feel like Green Knight was a little forced at times and kind of telling you instead of showing you. And I feel like this movie kind of did the same thing, even though it didn't have as much exposition or anything. I did just feel like it was a little obvious and showed its hand a little too much to me.
Interesting. We'll have to discuss this further because I don't think it does.
Well, this is the platform.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I really don't feel like this movie shows its hand enough. I think it's very up to interpretation.
But I think it's so much up to interpretation that like you end up zoning out, not of the film, but of caring, because you know you won't be able to decipher what's happening. Like, it's so back and forth, and to me there was no real, like, it was so much up to interpretation that it's like, now I'm just passively watching this because I've decided my plot line, and in my head, it was all, I knew he was dead, in my mind, while watching it. I knew that this was all post-life. So to me, it just felt like it just kept going.
That's so weird. Like, maybe you just shouldn't do that. Like, just experience the movie instead of like.
I did experience.
Well, I'm saying like.
No, but that's what I thought the plot line was. I didn't decide. That's what I thought the plot was. I thought he died. I thought he fell from the height, and that everything was taking place afterwards.
Fair. I guess just maybe like thinking that is the plot, and then kind of just resigning to that and not experiencing the rest of it. I guess.
I don't want to say I didn't experience it. I think that is saying I didn't enjoy. I liked the movie. I just didn't like it as much as I think you did.
No, that's fine. I love this movie, but like, I'm just trying to understand what you mean by when saying it's not like, I don't know, because we had the same discussion with The Green Knight after recording the podcast.
Yeah, I feel like it's, and that's why I referenced the two, because I feel like, to me, the movie was so art housey that I just knew that that's what they were going for, and it just kind of pulls a veil like back, and I'm like, oh, now I'm looking at the shot composition because I know that they're going for all these things, and I'm looking at things besides, like you just said, just letting the story happen to me. Because I know it's so art housey, I start looking for the art house shots. Like, oh, here's a very symbolic shot of him standing over William Dafoe, showing the power shift in the dynamic. And then it's like, just because I know that's what they're doing, it becomes so obvious.
Huh. I guess that's maybe just in the way you're analyzing it. I don't know.
Or I just didn't like this movie as much.
I'm trying to understand, because I honestly don't get the argument against art house movies. So I try and always, get the understanding for why people don't kind of enjoy.
Yeah, I think it's just a preference. Like, I think
Yeah.
there's people that like can't stand Fast and Furious, and I love Fast and Furious. Like, I think it's just a style of film, and I do like artistic films. We've reviewed them on here. I do like them. It's just, maybe it's like the uncanny valley for me, and certain movies just cross into that too art housey realm, where it's like I can see through the facade that it's putting up in my mind. But yeah, I don't know.
All right. Well, we've talked about The Lighthouse enough. We should probably move on to our second movie. But let's go ahead and do some scores for The
Sure.
Lighthouse. Adrian, since this is your first time watching The Lighthouse, what did you give it?
I gave this movie an 85. Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it's got a lot going for it. The acting is probably some of the best from both of the gentlemen that I've ever seen. And it really makes me excited to see what Robert Pattinson's going to do in the future. I think this is definitely a career broadening performance for sure. And yeah, as I just said, I just think it's a little too leans a little too into the art house for me at times. But I think the up for interpretation is awesome. Like, you got a completely different story out of it than I did, which I think is really hard to do in films. A lot of movies stick with that stinger where at the end they leave it open to interpretation. So you're like, oh, did the killer go free or did they get caught or what? And in this one, the entire movie to me is up for interpretation. You can literally decide whatever happened. Because it's that ambiguous, and I think that's really hard to do, and I think it's masterful storytelling. The art house, like the heavy art houseness, just got to me, I guess.
It's fair enough. I think that The Lighthouse is, of the two major films that Robert Eggers has done, I think this is a masterwork level achievement from him. I think Dafoe gives an Oscar-worthy performance, which sucks that he wasn't nominated, and Pattinson outperforms all expectations that anyone really has for him, giving one of the best career roles for him. And I love the tension of this movie. Like, it's so thick you could cut it with a knife. I think it's easily, if it's not the best, it's among the best of A24's films. And because of that, I gave it a 97. I think this movie is really freaking good. But let's go ahead and move on to a movie that almost everyone thinks is really, really good. And we're going to talk about Parasite. Released in 2019, it was directed by Bong Joon-ho and stars Kang Ho-sung, Sung Kyung-lee, and Yo Jong-cho. I hope I am saying those correctly. Greed and class discrimination threaten the newly formed symbiotic relationship between the wealthy Park family and the destitute Kim clan. It was nominated for 2 Oscars for Best Production Design and Best Film Editing, and won 4 for Best International Film, Best Original Screenplay, Best Director, and Best Picture. It's also worth it to note that Parasite is the first film ever to win Best Picture that's not from the US, while also winning the International Feature Award.
Yes.
Huge step in the Academy Award history.
So you hadn't seen it. So what did you think?
I have been waiting to see this movie for 2 years now. It just never popped to the top of my list, and I'm glad that we actually have now, because this is a damn near perfect movie.
Yeah, I completely agree. I saw this in theaters, and I immediately left going like, "Oh wow!" So yeah, what did you think without giving too much away?
Without giving too much away, I think pretty much everything in this movie is near flawless. The acting feels relevant, but also funny at points. Like, there is humor in this movie, like even the situation itself is pretty humorous when you think about it. Like, hey, we're gonna weasel our way in here, and do what we can. And I'm so glad that I had not had anything about this movie spoiled for me because,
Oh, that's great.
yeah, well, here's the thing: I had been told for the last 2 years different things about this movie, and none of them were true. I'd heard that someone told me this was a horror movie. That's wrong.
Yeah, that's not it.
Someone told me it's a comedy, which it has funny moments, but it's not a comedy. I would say this is much more a drama than anything else. I thought it was a thriller. I wouldn't say it's
thriller.
A thriller. There's thrilling elements, especially towards the latter half.
Yeah, maybe it's multiple genres. Maybe that's why it's so interesting to watch.
But I will say, I was expecting the film to go a different direction.
That's fun.
And it didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was for the better, but for the film itself, it worked really, really well. Because again, I didn't know anything about it. And I guess this isn't a spoiler. I can tell you about what I thought the movie was going to go. I thought that the poor family was going to kill the rich family and take their place. Kind of like
I see, and that's kind of one of those things where I think that would have been the reason that this movie's so good is because that would have been too on the nose.
Yeah,
I think everyone in theaters was expecting that, and when the movie diverts from expectations, that's when you really realize, like, wow, that's so cool that they thought to do this instead.
Oh yeah. It's fantastic. Everything from the production design to the visual effects, which there are visual effects in this movie, and you can't tell.
I believe, the entire yard outside of the yard, the entire landscape is not there.
Everything outside the house in the immediate backyard is visual effects.
And then even when they're showing, the front with the garage, that's not a real street. That's all... Yeah, it's crazy.
But it's like, what the heck? If you want a better explanation of it, the Corridor Crew did a visual effects artist react episode where they showed how that was done. There is one part towards the end, I gotta agree with them, when they're watching the news report at the end of the film, and you could tell that she's not on location. Yeah. But that's a very, very minor complaint in an otherwise near perfect movie. But
absolutely.
Let's go ahead and drop some spoiler warning for Parasite. If you have not seen it and you haven't been spoiled, please watch this movie. It is on Hulu for you to stream if you have a subscription. Because I believe Hulu is doing an American TV show adaptation of it. Either HBO or Hulu is. Yeah.
Does that seem excessive?
As long as the story isn't exactly the same. If the premise is the same. Yeah. Which I heard rumblings that Mark Ruffalo is involved in it, so... If he is, then...
Don't tell Cassidy.
Don't. I thought she loves Mark Ruffalo.
That's why we can't tell her.
Well, she listens to this, oh no. But let's go ahead and talk spoilers for Parasite. The original housekeeper coming back.
Plot twist!
Did not see that coming. And then everything going on down below...
Yeah.
Was like...
How about that tense scene where they first discover that area? And they're the long hallways that they're walking down, the stairs, and it's what is possibly down here?
Yeah. Yeah. Why is there a basement like this it was weird. It's weird for the moment, but it was a totally just fantastic tension-filled moment. I was expecting them to either keep them prisoner down there or potentially kill them a lot sooner. Yeah. But again, it never happened. So I was just what is going on? It just blew my mind.
And then when they're able to flicker the lights in the entryway, and it's notice. Yeah, there was some. Wow, yeah. And then I loved the whole. Well, actually, let me preface with this. I loved that this movie showcased what living in either regular to poor state in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
In Korea, it was with the flooding and living underground with your windows being really high up and barely at street level. That is pretty accurate from everything that I've researched to what those communities are like. And I mean, heavy rains in those areas it's that much of a disaster. So I thought the struggle that they set up for the family was grounded in something so real that I think it added a ton to the movie.
Yeah, it kind of is a necessary push, right? The push over the edge, which leads to the final birthday party moment, which I gotta say, I don't quite understand why the father killed the rich father.
Why?
Because like, so when they're at the garden party and they're rushed by the old housekeeper's husband,
Yeah.
and then he gets the knife and then just walks over and stabs the rich dad.
I think it's because he sees his opportunity in all the chaos.
Yeah, but I feel like it was never really set up that he would kill or like do anything like that to them. Maybe or actually, you know what? No, because they do kind of talk about it because he's like, oh, that Mr. Kim, he smells like death and all that or whatever. And
the whole time the driver, he's like been putting him down.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
So I think he like takes the chaos.
Rewind.
I think he takes that moment of chaos and is like, I can do it now, and it's just all so chaotic that it'll be done.
Exactly. Yeah, and then.
But also, how horrifying to be at a birthday party and have like people straight up just be there,
and then just like, all that going on. There's some
horrifying.
Stabbing. Horrifying, absolutely. I feel so.
And then
bad
the rock symbol for wealth being the instrument used
to
in bludgeoning,
brain damage. Yeah.
But like, but again, that to me that was a cool symbol, right? The symbol for wealth. In the very beginning, you hear about it. Then they bring it all the way back, and they don't really tell you what it's about. Again, they just show you what happens with it, and awesome scene.
Yeah, and then everything is set up. Like everything that happens, like they foretell everything in the beginning of the movie, and it all comes true.
Yeah,
which I'm always a fan of that happening because you can go back and like it creates rewatchability.
Where you look for all the little details that happen,
all the little hints.
Yeah.
But no, this movie's just fantastic. I feel like everyone, acting wise, does their job in this movie very very well. Especially
and kind of a cliffhanger at the end, right?
That was actually what I wanted to bring up because I don't think it's a cliffhanger.
You think that actually happened?
No.
So that I don't think it did either.
No, I don't think it ever will. Because this movie is about the difference between the lower and the upper class.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll ever get to that point to buy the house.
So some people think that that's what happened, right? That's a montage of the rest of his life. But I think that's him fantasizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Because he also has the brain damage.
Yeah.
So like he could be just completely,
crazy. Yeah.
But and then they do get arrested for what they did, right? The mom and the son.
Yeah, that's what I. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought because I was like, because the daughter dies, unfortunately, and then obviously Mr. Kim goes on the run, and is living below the house, which is actually a really interesting parallel that he's called a cockroach so many times. And then literally comes out at night and grabs food.
Lives in the walls, yeah.
Yeah, it's man, this movie's so good.
But also, I love that, right, it has a whole arc of successfully accomplishing what they wanted to. And so the rise and the fall, right? And then at the end, you could argue that they're worse off than before. Had they just been happy with what they had, there's a very real argument to be made that it got worse for them while trying to do all this.
Well, also, it could have been fine if it was just the son and daughter.
Yeah, if they just made it work on their own.
When you started, getting other people out of the house and, getting other people in trouble, that's where it really goes downhill. And that's where the main family, the Kim family, kind of becomes the villain. I feel bad for the rich family in this movie, man. Like
they're just living their life. Yeah, they're just trying to have their kids grow up and get them tutored and all that.
Especially,
I think. Yeah. Go ahead.
I say, especially the mother, because like she's taken advantage of so heavily.
Oh my gosh, so much money, doesn't care.
Yeah.
But I think that's also something that this movie does really well, which is, again, with that rise and fall, it's working. The plan is full blown working. And every time they introduce a new family member, even from the moment that the sister gets included, you're kind of like, oh, like, I'm nervous about this. Like, that's an extra thing to go wrong. And then the dad gets wrapped in, and it's like, oh, now another thing. And the build of that tension of so many dominoes stacked on one table, and you're like, all it's going to take is one of these things to just fall, and the whole thing's going to come out. And the movie just keeps adding dominoes. Like, it literally is like, and how about this? And how about this? And you're like, oh my gosh. And it's so good.
It's like whenever there's no such thing as a little white lie, right? Like, it keeps building. You have to keep lying. Like, that's another aspect of this movie that's incredibly fantastic.
Keep
and
the
tension.
lie.
It's tension in a way that we can all relate to. Because we've all been in that point where we've lied like that and then made like, oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, it was this. And then you
It's literally like when you put on your resume that you're proficient in Excel, and then they're like, great, can you throw me some pivot tables? And you're like, yikes, I don't know if that's what I meant by proficient.
I love it. But, anything else you want to talk about with this movie? Because I feel like I really don't want to talk about this movie a lot because I feel like it's better for people to go in with no expectations.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I've been talking about it really shotgun style and not really saying what happens when, because I think there's a lot to be discovered, even though you might have heard some things if you stayed and listened and haven't seen it. There's so much to this movie and so many details that happen in literally every shot that I guarantee you'll like it. Like, even if you feel like, oh, well, now I know this part of it. You don't. There's so much that happens and so much to watch and so much to think about that it's worth seeing no matter what.
Yeah. Do not let the subtitles scare you off. Like,
not at all.
There's not a lot of action going on. You can read it just fine as you're watching it. Like, it's very, very good. And it like this this is probably one of the best movies I can say we've reviewed that's in a foreign language to watch first.
Yeah, we've given I think 2 other movies that recommendation. I don't remember what they are, but good, approachable.
Seven Samurai and something else we did, but this one's easily the best one to start with.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the most approachable, and it's deserving of all the awards that it won. Absolutely, this is a movie that we always talk about those movies that are made just to grab awards, but this one was made and earned those awards. I don't think it was made just to grab them. You can tell there was a lot of passion and thought behind it. And it's definitely one for the books for sure.
Also, I'd like to point out that the main actor who played Mr. Kim was also in a movie we've previously covered here on the podcast, which was The Good, the Bad, the Weird. He was the weird.
Oh, I immediately recognized him. Wow, that's so crazy. I didn't even realize.
He's a great actor, man. I want to watch more
very different roles, huh?
Oh yeah, totally. But let's go ahead and give some scores, wrap up this show and tell, and give you a quick tease of what's going on next week. But I guess since this was my first time watching it, I will go ahead and give my score first. I thought Parasite's unflinching, uncompromising, funny, and relevant. Parasite more than earns its near-perfect reputation among film fans, as Bong Joon-ho, is in total control of his passion to deliver an unforgettable film. I gave Parasite a 99.
Nice. Almost there, huh? I gave Parasite a 95. I also think this movie is incredible, and I think it's a great jumping-off point for a lot of fan films, and it deserves everything that it got.
Absolutely. That's just the case. So,
yeah. Not much else. There's not much else to say about it. Just go see it. It's really good.
Literally, just watch it. And then pause this at the halfway point, watch the movie, and then come back and listen to it. Let's
now that we're at the end of the podcast, when you can't do that, make sure to go back, pause in the middle.
Go back and pause, and you'll be good. But Adrian, a little birdie told me, it's not the Twitter bird because we're not on Twitter, but
hopefully it wasn't a seagull.
Well, I didn't kill one, so we're good.
Okay.
Thunderstorms in the background. But where can people find us online if they want to follow us for updates?
The Drive Back Podcast, pretty much everywhere. If you are seeing us right here, you're on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and smash the like button down there. And go ahead and hit the little bell to make sure you get notified. We post every Monday, as well as sometimes we post out of cycle, and we get some extra content here on YouTube that's exclusive to this platform. If you look up the Drive Back Podcast on any of your podcasting apps or platforms, you'll find us there. Go ahead and follow us. Again, we post every Monday on those. But if you want that exclusive content, stay right here on YouTube. And then if you want to follow us on Instagram and talk to us and see our posts and kind of we do custom artwork for each film that we review and each episode that we come out with, so you can follow us there at the Drive Back Podcast on Instagram. We like to chat with you guys and see what you like and what you don't like, and you'll always be able to get a social media notification that a new episode is available when it comes out.
Absolutely. And then beyond that, if you'd like to see any other further film reviews, I have my film blog, which will be linked in the description below. I've started doing a new series of posts that are called catch-ups, where I watch a lot of movies, so I catch up on all the stuff that I've watched during the week in addition to the podcast, so you can find those down below as well. Things we won't have time to get to on here, really, and if we do later on, I'll have a basis for what to rate it. You know.
Yeah, I mean, technically we get to 52 movies a year, or maybe double that, maybe like 100 from the double features. Yeah, so something in between there, but so many movies exist. There's just no way we can catch them all.
Yeah, so there's a good way to kind of see those reviews on there. Speaking of which, next week, talking about movies, we have a first-timers for next week. Both Adrian and I have never seen the movie that was originally the Oscar winner for Best Picture, but then, people actually could read and then saw that it wasn't that movie. We're going to be watching La La Land next week for the first time, which is quite the genre shift from the last couple movies we've done. But that is the next film, which I believe is only rentable. So if you want to watch it beforehand, make sure you rent it and watch it before the week after, next Monday. So, but other than that, just another piece of advice. Adrian and I 100% can tell you, do not, under any circumstance, watch the new Amazon Prime Cinderella movie.
Oh, we're not even going to review it. It's worse than Artemis Fowl.
It's, yeah. I will say that in a single statement right here, I would rather watch Cinderella again than Space Jam: New Legacy.
So we have basically we have 3 of the 4 horsemen of the film apocalypse. We just need to find one more movie to label.
I think it's
never see these.
Bucky Larson, the Born to Be a Star one.
Which one's plague and which one's famine? That's what I need to know.
War is definitely Space Jam because it was a war on my eyes.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you guys next week. We love you so much. We'll see you next time on the drive back. And there we go.